Layouts. Hello everyone. So we're going to speak about layouts in this video. So we can start to design levels in Android Studio. But we should learn layouts in order to design Android applications. So just what exactly is a layout? A layout is an interface that we use to place Android components on the Android application. So we're going to use layouts to establish components in a particular order. These components are buttons and text views, radio buttons, and anything you can pretty much think of. There are varieties of layouts, and these are linear layout, relative layout, table layout, and constraint layout. So these are the main types of layouts, and we'll speak about the first three layouts in this video. I'm going to reserve the constraint layout to another video, but most of the projects we're going to use the linear layout and the relative layout. But if you have a table design in your project, you can use the table layout. Now, because I want to stay on topic, we're going to speak about Android Studio. So let's go to Android Studio, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so you may recall that we have a project, and its name is My First Application. So when we open a new project in Android Studio, it creates a main activity XML file. So we will design right here on this page. And this page's default layout is constraint layout. Now, we will not use the constraint layout. We will start by using the linear layout. Now, if you look at the component section, you will see the layout types under the layout section. So first, I'm going to delete the constraint layout. I know, just delete it. And instead of the constraint layout, I will write linear layout. And I will do this using XML code. So I'll open the text side, delete the constraint layout. After that, I will write in linear layout. Okay, so now our layout is linear layout. But also we're going to need to specify its orientation. Now there are two types of linear layouts. One is horizontal. The other is vertical. You can specify it by writing this code. Now I'll first choose the vertical orientation. So in this layout, components are placed from up to down. If you choose horizontal orientation, the components will be placed from left to right. Just so you know. So for example, I'm going to put text view here. And you can see it started from up here. And then after that, I'm going to add a button. And you see it's placed under the text view here. And if I add another button, guess what? It'll be placed under that first button. So now I'm going to change the orientation of my linear layout. Make it horizontal. And now if you look at the design page, you'll see everything is placed from left to right. So I'm going to change the layout width. I'll change it to wrap content. And then you can see that the buttons and text views are sorted from left to right. Now if I add one more button, it will take its place after the second button. You know what, I should mention to you about the layout width and the layout height here. They are match parent and wrap content in here. So when you choose match parent, the layout will cover the entire screen. But if you choose wrap content, the layout will be big enough to enclose its content. Right? Make sense? Also, you can give a numerical value in here. So by that, I mean you don't have to choose just match parent or wrap content. For example, let's give a layout width of 400 dp and layout height of 500 dp. Now also, you can add more than one layout. So now I'm going to choose layout width and height match parent. And I'm going to add another layout, but this time its orientation will be horizontal. Now I added this under the vertical linear layout, and I will add 2 text views under this horizontal layout. And I will choose layout width, wrap content for horizontal layout. And now you can see these 2 text views are side by side. So in the same way, I will choose layout height, wrap content for horizontal layout. And now you can see the button too. So now these 2 text views depend on the horizontal layout, and buttons depend on the vertical layout. So actually, buttons and horizontal layout are elements of a vertical layout. Also, horizontal layout has 2 more elements that are text views. So now let me just add one more button here, and it will take its place under the other button. Now also, I can add one more layout. Now this layout is also going to be a horizontal layout. So this layout is an element of the vertical layout. I will connect these 2 buttons to this new layout, and I will do this with, over here on the XML code sign, and I will cut these 2 buttons XML codes and paste inside the layout. But also I should choose layout with wrap content for this layout. Great, so now we have one main layout and its orientation is vertical. And also we have 2 child layouts and their orientation is horizontal. And then every horizontal layout has 2 child layers, and these are buttons and text views. Now, after the linear layout, we can continue with the relative layout. And I'm just going to delete these components. And I will change linear layout to relative layout. So, how does the relative layout work? Probably the best way is to show you. So components are placed right in each other's position within the relative layout. I'm just going to add 2 buttons to show you how relative layout works. You can see that these 2 buttons took place on top of each other because we haven't given them any position. So now I'm going to change the first button text to be a capital letter A, and its ID will be a lowercase a. And for the second button, I will change its text to be capital letter B, and its ID will be lowercase b. So now let's go to the XML side, and I will first find the button and add a new line of XML code. And this code is layout center horizontal true. Now button A takes a place center of this row. And I'm going to add another line of code. So this time, center vertical is true. Now button A took place center of the screen. And now I will give a place to button B according to button A, or relative to button A. Yeah, see where we're going? And I'm just going to add a new line of code in the XML code of button B. And this code is layout below IDA. Now button B will take its place under button A. Now if I want button B to be in alignment with button A, I should just add a new line of code. Layout center horizontal, true. And now button B is under button A. Now, if I want to put button B above button A, I should just write the layout above IDA. And now button B is above button A. So you see in the relative layout of the components, they all take their places according to each other's position. Okay, so now we can have a look at the table layout. In the table layout, components take their places by means of a table position. So in the table layout, there are rows and columns. And now I'm just going to delete the relative layout and write table layout. Also, we need to add some rows in this table layout. So I'll add 3 rows. And then after that, I can add 3 buttons for each row. So now we have 9 buttons on the table layout in a table position. So where can I use a table layout? Let's say, for example, I want to design a calculator. We can use the table layout. So I'm going to change these button text to 1, 2, 3, and you see where we're going. And of course, you can use more than one layout in your design. So I think that wraps this video. We'll continue in the next one. See you then. TextViews. Hello everyone, it's time to talk about TextViews in this video. So we spoke about components in Android Studio in the last video. We mentioned some layouts, and right now we're going to talk about which Android components to place on these layouts. One of them is TextView. So what exactly is TextView and what can you do with it? So TextView is a component to show text to the users. I know it seems elementary, but stay with me. You can use TextViews as labels or to print some results on the screen or to print some notifications on the screen and that kind of thing. TextViews can be used in a lot of different areas. So it's pretty much the most commonly used component. So we'll go back to Android Studio and have a look at how TextViews work in practice. Now we can add text views two different ways to Android applications. And of course, the first one is to drag and drop it into the Android Studio like this. All I'll do is drag text view, drop it under the constraint layout. And now we have text view and its text is also text view. So we can change this text whenever we want to. This was the first way. Also, of course, there is another way, always another way. And I'm just going to delete this text view and create a new one using XML code. And I'll go into the XML side. And now I'm going to write text view XML code under the constraint layout. And I'm writing here text view, and Android Studio will autocomplete it. Now I just need to give some values for the layout width and height, and I'll just write wrap content for both of them. Now this will define height and width of the text view. Now we have a text view here, but we don't see it because we did not write some text. So I'm going to add a new line of text inside the text view using XML code. I'll write inside text view hello world. And to do this, I will just need to write Android : text. And inside the quotation marks, I will write text. So whatever I write inside the quotation marks, the text of the text view will be what I write. So now the text of text view is hello world. So I choose wrap content for height and width of text view. And then setting a text view size to wrap content will force it to expand only far enough to contain the values it contains. Right? So if I add new words to the text, the size of the text view will be bigger. And if I change it to a bigger number size inside the text view, the height of the text view will also be bigger. When I change text size to 20 dpi, and the text view size gets smaller, of course. So when I change text size to 40 dpi, text view's size gets bigger, way bigger. Now, on the other hand, I can choose the width of text view as a match parent. So when I write match parent here, text view will cover all of the device screen from left to right. And then also when I write match parent for layout height, the text view will cover all of the device screen from top to bottom. So now I'll choose wrap content for layout height. Now, of course, also I can give numerical values for height and width. So let's give 150 dpi for width and 75 dpi for height. And also I'm going to drag text view to the center of the screen. So when I click text view, I can see the attributes section on the right side of Android Studio. And I can also see all of the operations I can do right here, everything that I can do to text view. For example, I can change the layout margin here. And then when I change the layout margin, text view position will change on the screen. Now, if I write 250 dpi here, text view's position will go down. If I write 150, it'll go up. And I can give numbers from here for left, right, top, and bottom. Layout margin defines the position of the text view. Also, there's another attribute here. It's called padding. If you're not familiar with padding, padding defines the text position inside text view. So if I write 25 in the left box, see how the text will go 25 dpi from left to right. So if I write 10 in the top box, the text will go 10 dpi from top to bottom. Also, I can change the text size in the attribute section. So if I choose 24 dpi, the text will be bigger. When I choose 14 dpi, the text will be smaller. Now, all the changes that we made in the attribute section will be added in the background as XML code. Now, if you want, you can write XML code to do the same operations, or you can use the attribute section. So let's see what else we can do in the attribute section. We can change the background color from here. I will choose color accent as a background color. And now the background of TextView is changed like so. There's gravity here. You can define text position automatically inside the text view from here. So I'll choose center, and text will take the center position vertically and horizontally. But if I choose this, I'll need to change gravity to 0. And now we can change text color from here as well. So for example, let's say that I want to choose white, and the text color will be white. We can do a lot of operations from here. But also we can do these operations on the Java side. You don't think I was going to leave that out, do you? But before we work using Java code, we will need to give an ID to this text view. You remember when we talked about it before? So on the Java side, this text view needs to be given an ID in order to be recognized. So I'm going to give it text example as an ID. And now our ID of text view is text example. And text of text view is hello world to the human. So let's go to the Java side. First up, I need to call TextView as my class and give a name to this text view. And I'm going to use this name on the Java side. You can give it a name, whatever you want. I gave the name text. You know, I'm creative that way. Now, after that, I do need to call this text in the create method. So I will write text equals, and I will write find view by ID. And I will call TextView from the XML side using its ID. And I'll write inside the parentheses r.id.textExample. So see, now we have assigned TextView to the text we created on the Java side. Now I can do all of the operations that I've done on the XML side here, but how will I do this? I'll just write text here, and I will add point here. Then after the point, I can see all of the operations automatically. And I can set a new text from here. So there are plenty of operations here that I can choose from. For example, I can choose set text color. So I'll choose a color, writing color.black. And then when I write this code, nothing has changed on the XML side. The changes will be applied when I run this application on the device. So I'll click Run. And then, after the device opens, I can see the changes in the application. So it'll take some time to get to the device online. There we go. Now you can see that the text color is black. Cool. Okay, so also I can change the text using set text code. I'll write text.setText, and inside the parentheses, I will write new text. I want to change, and I will write this as an example. But you should be careful now. You need to write text inside the quotation marks, right? And I'll just run it again. There you go. Now you see that the text has changed. So in addition, we can add a feature to TextView. And if we click to TextView, we can start the operation. So for example, when we click onto the TextView, we can open a new activity, or we can change the text size or text color. So let's try it like this. How are we going to do this? I will add a click listener to this text view. You see it? I will write text.setOnClickListener, and then inside the parentheses, new view on click listener. And I will write new codes inside the onClick method. Now, of course, these codes will work only when I click to the text view, right? I will write inside the onClick method text.setTextColor. Color.white. Click Run again. And after a while, the device is running. And now you can see here that there's not any changes in the text view. How come? After I click on the text view, the code will work and the text color will be white. So let's change the background color of the text view. I will write text.setBackgroundColor, color.black. And I'll click Run again. Now you can see that after I click Text View, the text color will be white and the background of the text view will be black. So we can do a ton of other operations here. But for now, that's enough for one video, believe me. There are other components that we need to learn, so make haste. I'll see you in the next video. Buttons. Hello, everyone. I want to speak about buttons in this video. No, not the ones on your jumper, your sweater, anywhere else, your shirt. Buttons on Android components. So when you click on buttons, buttons will do specific operations. Buttons are one of the most useful components, and I'm thrilled to be able to tell you about them. So if I want to count 3 of the most used components, I'll definitely say buttons, text views, and EditTexts. So in the last video, we spoke about text view. This video is about buttons, and we're going to speak about EditTexts in the next video. I know, I'm transparent, aren't I? So let's go ahead into the Android Studio without losing any more time. So we have an open project from the last video, and we have a text view in this project. So now we're going to add a new button to the project. And as you perhaps remember before, we can add a new button in 2 ways. First one is drag and drop. Boom, I added a new button. And of course, I can drag it wherever I want and change my mind. And that's because I use constraint layout. Just snaps like that. Now, the second way to add a new button is by using XML code. So why don't we add a second button using XML code? Now, just go over to the XML side, and you can see here XML code that I've added a button before. I'm going to write button here, and Android Studio will autocomplete it. Okay, so now I need to define height and width, and I'll choose match parent for 2 of them. And you can see here we have a second button but it covered the whole screen. So I'm going to change height to wrap content. Okay, so now the button covered the screen just from left to right. Now we need to give some text to this button. And I'm going to write here Android text, and inside the quotation marks, button 2. And now you can see the button and button 2. So why don't we change the width of button 2 to be wrap content. And now we have 2 buttons. The first one is created by drag and drop. The second one is by using XML code. Now we can do a lot of operations with these buttons, right? We can do these operations in the attributes section. So we can define height and width here. We can specify layout margin from here. Also, we can define padding here. You remember that I mentioned that before, right? Padding defines the text position inside the button. So let's just go over it again. If I write left 20, text will go 20 dpi to the left. Also, when I write 20 dpi, text will go 20 dpi down. Now I can change the button text from here too. So I'll just write in here quickly, do your magic, and you can see the button got bigger because the button width is wrap content. Okay, so when the text gets longer, the button will get bigger in order to cover the text. And I can change the background color of the button from here as well. And I'll choose a color from here, and the button color will change. Now also I can choose the button to be clickable or not. Now you can probably think of why I put a button in the project, and I didn't do it to be clickable. So if I do not click the button, why did I put a button there? Well, this is important because you can do regulation on your project, and you can do your buttons to be clickable after some other operation. So in other words, before these operations happen, the button will not be clickable. You get me? For example, if you design a game, and inside the game there is a next section button, but you don't want the player to pass on to the next section before they, I don't know, make a, specific score. Well, you can specify that after the player collects a score, the next section button will be clickable. So then the player can pass to the next level after they make the required score. Also, we can change the text color from here. We can change the text size from here. Also, another important thing, we can do our button to be visible or invisible. Now you get it. So if I choose invisible, the button will not be seen. So this feature, of course, can be used for the same purpose and that I mentioned about being clickable or not clickable. Inclickable, I almost said. Inclickable. All right, so now we need to give this button an ID to be able to work on the Java side. So Android Studio gave this button an ID. It is button. All right, so if you want, you can change it. But you know what? I'm going to change it, and I will give it the ID do magic. Great. So now the ID of this button is do magic, and the text of the button is "Do Your Magic." So are you ready? Let's go over to the Java side. So there are some codes here before we wrote, so I'm going to delete some of it. And now I need to define that button in here. So I expanded import part above. And you can see here when I defined TextView, Android Studio imported android.widget.textview. Now you must import it in order to work with TextView. And in the same way, when I write here button and I do not choose autocomplete, the word button will be red because we did not import the button class inside the project. So that means I'll just need to import the button class. How am I going to do that? See here, when I write button, and then after that I press Control and space at the same time on the keyboard. After that, Android Studio will show me what I can import. And then I'll just double-click Android.widget as my option. And you see here, Android Studio imported Android.widget.button. And the button word is not red anymore. So now I need to give a name to this button in order to work here on this button. Let's see, I'll give the name button, but you can give whatever name you want, of course. Also, I'm going to need to define this button inside the onCreate method. So I'll write button equals find view by ID. I will write inside the parenthesis r.id.doMagic because the ID of my button was doMagic. So now I've defined the button on the Java side. I can do everything in here. So I will write button after dot, and you can see the operations that I can do. Now I will add a click listener, and inside the parentheses, new view on click listener. And then after that, I write inside the onClick method will be executed when I click the button. And I will write inside the onClick method button.setBackgroundColor and inside the parenthesis color.black. So this code will then change the background color of the button after I click that button. I mean, that's a predicted result. We'll run it and we'll see. Whew, boy, it is working. You can see that, right? Cool. So we can do operations on other components from here as well. For example, we can change the text of the text view from here. So let me write text.setText, and inside the quotation marks, I have done my magic. Okay, so let's run it. And you see when I click on the button, text of the text view has changed. Now also I can do invisible for this text view. So I'm going to write text.setVisibilityView.invisible. Let's run the app. And you can see, or you can not see, that it is working. So when I click the button, text view gets invisible. So in other words, you see that it is working because you don't see. Well, okay, well, never mind. You see that invisible is visible. No. Okay. Now I will do the invisible button itself. For my next magic trick. So you see here that there is another button, but when I click it, it doesn't work. Why? Because we haven't written codes for this button. Now, of course, we can do many more things here, but I just want to point out another topic about buttons. I know, I'm button crazed. I'm obsessed. The design of buttons is as important as its codes. So because of this, you need to learn different types of button designs. Do I need to say it again? Button types or button designs are as important as its codes. For example, you would want to shape a button to be oval or circular or rectangular. And then when we want to change the button design, we'll need to create a new XML file. So I will right-click the drawable folder, and then after that, I will choose New, Drawable Resources File, and it will open in a new window. Now I need to give a name to this new XML file, and I will give the name Button Shape to this file. Click OK. And now we have a new XML file, and its name is Button Shape. Stay with me. There are some codes here, and these are the codes that when we click each button, how its design will be created. So I will delete these codes because I will not work with this right now. I just want to change the shape. So I'm going to define the shape, writing Android shape oval. Now also I need to choose a color for this button. So there are two types of colors, basically solid and stroke. I will define a solid color, and I'll choose a color from here, but you can choose whichever color you want. I'm not looking, so go ahead. So we defined the button shape, but has anything changed on the main activity XML page? Because we need to set as a background, we created the button shape XML. Now, how will I do this? I'm going to go back to the XML side of the activity main page, and I will change the button background. I will add the button shape XML file under the drawable folder that we created before. And now you can see the button has taken the oval shape. But we defined the width and height to be wrap content. Need to change that too. So I'll change two of them to 150 dp button. Yes, took the shape of a ring. So you can do this square or rectangular. It's up to you. Go, play. You're going to have a great time. It's enough for this video. I will see you in the next one. EditTexts. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to speak about EditTexts in this video. So EditTexts are Android components, and it's used to basically get data from the users. You can see EditTexts in many Android applications, and they get the data from the users, such as name and surname, password, address, all that kind of stuff. Now, there are different types of EditTexts, and we're going to see these types in this video in practice. So we'll go to Android Studio and let's have a look around. All right, so here you can see EditTexts on the left side of Android Studio in the palette window. And under the text section, its name is plain text. And under the plain text, there are other types of EditTexts, such as password input, email input, phone number input, date and time, multi-line input, etc., etc. Now, before we start getting into edit text, let's change the relative layout to the linear layout. And now we can learn how to work with linear layout. So what I did was I deleted relative layout from the XML side and wrote linear layout here. Also, the orientation of the linear layout is vertical, and you can see that here. So what I'll do is I'll drag and drop a plain text under the linear layout, and there we go. We have an edit text. Now the idea of this edit text is edit text, and the text of edit text is name. So when we run this application, the users will enter data from here, such as name, right? So let's just run it and see what happens. Application running now, so you can see here users will enter their data from here. Now I'm going to delete the word name that we wrote before, and I can just write everything here. You know, also I can always enter numbers from here as well. So let's add another edit text. Let me add password edit text and numerical password edit text and numerical edit text that you can just enter numerical numbers from here, and also the multi-line edit text. And we'll run the application with these edit texts. Great, so the first one is standard edit text, and you can enter numbers and characters. The second one is the password edit text. So when you enter password in this enter text, numbers and characters will not be seen, right? And you can enter this password edit text, numbers and characters. It's alphanumeric, just like you would want it to be. And the third one is also a password edit text, but users can only enter numbers and not characters. Also, numbers will not be seen in this type of edit text. And let's have a look at the fourth one, the number edit text. And then here, of course, users can only enter numbers in this edit text, but the numbers will be seen in this edit text. Now, where can this edit text be used? For example, if you want to, grab a phone number from the user, you can use this edit text, or you want a user to enter his or her age. So when you want the user to enter digits only, this is the type of edit text to use. Now, the last one here is the multi-line edit text, and the user can enter more than one line of information in this type of edit text, obviously. So I will write here some text, just to show you how it works. And then you can see here, after the first line, the second line continues under the first line, just automagically. For example, you can use this type of edit text to get user comments or address, or address a complaint even. There are not going to be many of those, but whatever you need it to do. But in the first one, when the user enters more than one line, after the line has finished, the head of the line will not be seen. Of course, we are not done yet. We've just placed the edit text here. So we need to get the information and use it somehow, right? And we will do this on the Java side using Java code. So let's do up an example, shall we? So I'm just going to delete the edit text except the first one. Now also let me add a button and a text view. So I will develop an Android application, right? And the user will enter the name from the edit text, and after a click on the OK button, the name will be seen on the text view. So I'm going to delete the text of the edit text, but it will not be empty. And I will add a hint to the edit text. Now the hint, of course, is a tip given to the user to understand what the user will write in the edit text. I mean, unless you're making a guessing game, but for this example, we're just going to write in the hint section, please write your name. And I'll change the text of the button as an OK. And I also deleted the text of TextView. So let's change the design of the application a little bit. Now I'm going to give a layout margin here of 50 dp from top to the edit text. And I will give some space between the edit text and the button, about 30. And in the same way, the button and text view. And let's do, 30 as the height of the text view. And I'll change the width of the edit text. And let's make it 200. It's a little too small. Let's make it 300. Yeah, that looks okay. So in the same way, I'll just change the width of the button to 300. Now, for the text view, I just do the same. So that means I will place these three components into the center of the screen horizontally. So how can I do this? That's when I select linear layout. And then after that, I'll go to the gravity option from the attribute section, and I'll choose center horizontally, and then all the components placed in the center. Now I will add a text on the text view. Could be, result. And I'll change the background of the linear layout. And let's change the background of the other components too. And I'm going to choose white for these three components. Yeah, that button looks a little big, huh? So let me change it to 200. And now I'll give an ID to these components. So edit text name is for edit text. Button OK is for the button. And text view result is for the text view. So I think it's okay. Let's have a look. We'll run it and we'll see it on the phone. Okay, so the application is working. Now you can see the hint in here. And I write Arnold here, click OK. Arnold should be seen on the text view instead of result. So the application is not doing this right now. Well, because we have not written the Java code, right? That's what you were thinking. So why don't we go over to the Java side and write some code? So the first thing I need is to define these three components. And I'll define EditText. Now, when I write EditText and choose from the autocomplete, Android Studio imports the required class android.widget.editText. So after I wrote EditText, I'll just need to give a name to this EditText. Let's just call it name, just to be clear. Okay, so secondly, I'll do the same thing for the button and give a name, okay. And the last component is TextView. I'll just call it result. So now I'm going to assign XML components that I designed before to use these names using the findViewById code inside the onCreate method. So here I'm going to write name equals findViewById r.id.editText name. On the second line, OK equals findViewById r.id.button OK. And in the same way, the result equals findViewById r.id.textViewResult. Yeah, you with me so far? Because it's so far so good. So now I'm going to add a click listener to the OK button, right? So OK.setOnClickListener, and inside the parentheses, new view on click listener, and autocomplete will take care of the rest. And I'll write code inside the onClick method, and I'll get the data that the user enters in the EditText. But how am I going to do that? You tell me, you're the one who's teaching the course. Okay, what I'll do is I'll write it here, name.getText.toString. So this code will take that text that the user enters in the EditText, and then it converts it to the string, right? So now I'm going to write this string to the result text view. But before I do this, I'm going to need to define a string container, and we'll call that username. I will assign the text that I took from the EditText and put it into this username string. So because of this, I will write here username equals name.getText.toString. And then I can set the username on the text view. And I will write here result.setText, and inside the parenthesis, username. Right, so this is very important, and I hope you understand this. So rewind, set it up again in case you miss something. So what I did was I defined a container, and its name is username. After that, I took the text that the user entered and converted it to a string. And then I assigned this text to the username. And then lastly, I set this username to TextView. So let's run the application and see how it works or not. All right, so the application opened. And I'll just write here name and click OK. Good, so it's working, right? So it takes the name I wrote in the edit text and then writes it to the text view instead of result. So I think that's plenty enough for this video. I hope you understood the edit text. Like I say, if not, just rewind and do it again. You'll get the hang of it. Until then, see you in the next video. Image view. Hello, everyone. So today we're going to talk about image view in this video. So image view is an Android component to, guess what? Display images. Now, you know that showing images is really important for your Android application. And if you use good photos, good graphics, and all that, your design's going to look great. And because of all this, image view is important to master. So let's get to Android Studio and learn image view and practice. Okay, so you know that we have this project from before, and we'll continue to work on it. So I will add an image view in this project. So where do we find image view? It's inside the palette window under the widgets on the left side of Android Studio. And I will drag image view and drop it in the linear layout. Now, first I'm going to rearrange this so that I put it as first component. Now this is a linear layout and its orientation is vertical. Now because of this, all the components will get their place from up to down, top to bottom, right? So when I drop image view, a new window opens. And this window is the resources window. And what I'll do here is choose a picture for the image view. And I'm just going to choose a picture that's inside my project that I had before. And I'll click OK. So now I can see this picture on the phone, but see there's a problem. Because I cannot see the other components. And the reason is the sizes of image view are match parent and wrap content. So the size of my image is too big. And then when image view uses the wrap content for height, the image covered all of the screen from top to bottom. So I will change the layout height and width to 300. And now you can see all the components. So image view is now in the center of the screen horizontally. Now because I chose layout gravity center horizontal for my linear layout in the last video, all the components are placed in the center of the screen horizontally. Now, if you look carefully, you can see that the image is placed inside the center of image view. So if you want your image to cover all of image view, you should just choose the size of the image exactly the same size for image view, right? So for example, if the size of image view is 300 by 300, then the size of your image should also be 300 by 300, or vice versa. But also, we can do some arrangements within image view. So when I click on this button, some attributes will open, and I will go to the scale type. Okay, and we'll choose from here. We've got a few options. So if I choose Fit Start Image, will take place at the start position. And if I choose Fit Center, the image will be seen in the center. And if I choose Fit End, guess what? It'll take its place from the end position. Now, if I choose Fit XY, image will cover all of image view. But the image will be enlarged and it doesn't necessarily look good. So because of this, Fit Center is a good option. However, of course, it's up to you as the designer of your application. Alrighty then, so these are the things that we can do on the design page. We can also do something on the Java side using Java code. But before we go to Java side, I need to give this image view an ID, right? So let's give the image view example as an ID. And now let's go to the Java code side. So what can we do here? Well, let's say, for example, when I click on the OK button, the image in Image View will change, right? So then we'll see another image inside Image View. So how do we do this? Well, first, I'll need to decide and define this image view on the Java side. And I will write the image view image. I'll give it a name, such as image, and you can give a name whatever you want. And now I'll need to define its ID inside the onCreate method. And I'll write image equals find view by ID, and inside the parenthesis r.id.image example. I can do every operation on the image view using image word, and I will write operation codes inside the OK button, click listener method. And let me just delete these codes that I wrote before. Now I'll write image.setImageResource. But before we continue, I'll need to do one more thing. You know what that is? I'll need to add a second image in my project. That's right. So I will right-click to my drawable folder on the left side of Android Studio and choose Show and Explore. Drawable folder opens, and inside the drawable folder, I have one picture, and its name is A. So I will add a new image to this folder and call it B. And now when I close this folder, I can see my picture B in my project. So now I can call this image. And I'll write inside the parentheses r.drawable.b. All right, everything's okay now. So when I click the OK button, the image will change to image B. Good. So let's run it and see if it's working or not. Application opens. When I click OK, image changes. So you see how you can do a lot of operations like this, but I think it's enough for this video. Play around with that, and I will see you in the next one. Checkbox. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the checkbox. It's very important. That's why I've devoted a whole video to it. So the checkbox is yet a different type of component in Android Studio. It is a kind of a button. It just accepts two positions, checked or unchecked. And it's often used as a component while developing Android applications, so we need to talk about it. Let's say, for example, that we want to develop a survey application or even a note-taking application. We'll pretty much want to use that checkbox, right? So let's go to Android Studio and see it in practice before we lose any more time. So we have an earlier Android project from before, yes, and we will continue to build on this project. And what I'm going to do is add two checkboxes to this project. And the checkbox is under the Buttons section in the palette window. And I'll just drag two checkboxes and drop them here. Now, what should we do with these checkboxes? Okay, so let's say, for example, asking for the gender of the user, right? So we'll have two checkboxes. One is for male, second one is female. Whichever one the user checks, we will write its gender into the text view here. And let's look at some of the features of the checkboxes. So we can define its height and width from here. And I can change the layout width from the match parent to the wrap content. And now its width is wrap content, but it's placed in the center, right? So that's because we defined gravity of the linear layout center horizontal. So let's do the same for the second checkbox. Okay, so now the two of them are placed in the center. So let's ask a question to the user. And for that, I will need to change the text of the text view and write what is your gender, and then the user will give an answer to this question, male or female for now. Yeah, this is just an example. And I will change the text of the first text box to male and the text of the second box to female. All right, so what do you suppose we can do in here with these checkboxes? First off, let's define the default position for the checkbox from here. We can choose checked or unchecked as a default. And let's continue. So I'll change the text color of the checkbox to white. And I'll do the same for the second checkbox. And let's make the layout margin from the top 10 dp for the first checkbox. Yeah, do the same for the second. If user checks male, text of the text view will change to male. And if user checks female, text of the text view will change to female. Okay, so now we'll need to give an ID to these checkboxes. So I will give the ID checkbox male for first checkbox and checkbox female for the second. Okay, so now we got to go to the Java side. And I'll go to the main activity. Okay, so first up on the Java side is define the checkboxes. So I will write right here, checkbox. And, you know, if I click here, it will import the checkbox class. But I don't want to do that, so don't get ahead of me. So before the import checkbox, it's red. So I want to show you yet another import method. So when the checkbox is red, you can see a small lamp here. You see that? When I click this lamp, I can see the import class option. So I'll click the import class option and it will import the checkbox class. And that way I can put names to these checkboxes, male and female. So these names are my choice. Of course, you can give the names to be whatever you want. And now I need to assign these IDs to these checkboxes. And I will write male equals find view by ID r.id.checkbox male. And for the second checkbox, female equals find view by ID r.id.checkbox female. Then after that, I'm going to add a click listener to the male. So when the user clicks the checkbox, it will do these operations. And I'll write them here. Male.set on click listener, new view on click listener. So now I can write my codes inside the onClick method. And now there are two options for the male checkbox, checked or unchecked. And I will write if male dot is checked, this will control the checkbox is checked or unchecked. So if it is checked, it will return true. And if it's unchecked, it will return false. Okay, so quiz time. If it's checked, what's going to happen? I want to write male to the text view. So I will write result.setText male. Now, why did I write result? Because we gave result to the text view as the name from before. So if it's unchecked, I will write this question again. And I will write else, and then inside the brackets, result.setText. What is your gender? And I can do the same thing for the female. Female.set on click listener, new view on click listener, and inside the on click method, if female is checked, result.setText female. And if female is unchecked, result.setText and question again, what is your gender? Right? So now that I break it down, it's pretty simple, right? So let's run it and see what happens. So the application is opening and it's fully open, and you see if I check mail, text of the text view is changing to mail. Now let's uncheck mail. Text of the text view is changing to the question again. And if I check female, text of text view is changing to female. And if I uncheck female, text of the text view is changing to the question again. But I don't know if you see, we seem to have a problem here. What if I check both of them, right? So for this example, I really don't want to let the user check both of them. So what am I going to do? How do I avoid this? We're going to need to write some extra code. So I'm going to do this here. If male is checked, female must be unchecked. So I'll write female dot set checked false. And then this code defines the position of the checkbox. If it's true, checkbox will be checked. If it's false, checkbox will be unchecked. So with this code, if the male is checked, female will be unchecked. And I will do the same for the second checkbox, right? So this time I'm going to write male.setChecked false. If female is checked, the male will be unchecked. So let's run it again just to make sure. Okay, so there you go. It's working now. So when I check male, female is unchecked. When I check female, male is unchecked. Okay, so I think that's enough for this video, don't you? See you on the other side. We got another video coming up. Radio buttons. Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you a little bit about radio buttons for this video. Radio buttons are similar to checkboxes that we spoke about in the last video. Radio buttons are inside a group, and the user can choose one option from this group, one option only. So radio buttons are separate from checkboxes with this feature, right? So, for example, you can use radio buttons on a test application where there's only one answer. The user can choose only one option from the answer. Yeah? You can use radio buttons to get information from the user, sort of like checkboxes. But the checkbox, there's two options for one checkbox, right? It's either checked or unchecked. But for radio buttons, the user has to choose one option from the group. Also, one option is chosen by default. So let's go into Android Studio and see it in practice. All right, so we had a project from the last video. Let's continue on that one. And the radio buttons are under the buttons section. But before we add radio buttons, we will need to add a radio group. And I'll choose radio group from here. Just drag it into the text view. And now we can add radio buttons under the radio group. And I'll add 3 radio buttons here. And now you can see radio buttons, but the other components cannot be seen. So let's check the layout width and the height of the radio buttons. All right, so you can see here that the layout width and height, the radio buttons are wrap content. So we should see the other components normally, but if you check the layout height of the radio group, then you can see it is match parent. So because of this, we cannot see the other components. So let's change it to wrap content, and everything's fine. Now, when I choose wrap content for layout width, the radio buttons will take their place center horizontally. Why? Because we chose gravity of the linear layout center horizontal from before. So what do you suppose we can do with these radio buttons? All right, let's make an example of this. I will give these radio buttons some colors, and when the user chooses a color from the option and clicks the OK button, the background of the main activity color will change to whatever the chosen color is. So let's write the text of the first radio button, green. And for the second one, I'll just write in red. For the last radio button, I'll write yellow. And then when the user clicks OK, the background will change. So let's change the text color of the radio buttons to white. And I can do that from here. Also, I need to give an ID to these radio buttons. So for the first radio button, I'll make the radio button green as an ID. For the second one, I will write radio button red. And for the third one, I'll just write in radio button yellow. Now also, I will define the first radio button to be chosen as a default. And I can do that from here. And I clicked checked option. So after we finish the design, we can then go to the Java side. Now, first of all, we will need to define these radio buttons and the radio group here. And I'll write radio group and give a name, and we'll just call it radio group. And then after that, I'll need to define the radio buttons. So I'll just write in radio button green. When I write radio button, Android Studio imports the necessary class. And then I'll put red for the second button, yellow for the third radio button, and then after that, okay, so I'll need to define IDs for these radio buttons and the radio group. Write in radio group equals find view by ID. But before we continue, I will need to give an ID to the radio group. So we'll go back to the XML page and give it an ID here. And I gave group as the ID. So now I can write r.id.group. And then here, green equals find view by ID r.id.radio button green. And for the red one, red equals find view by ID r.id.radio button red. And lastly, for the yellow, yellow equals find view by ID r.id.radio button yellow. Great, so we have now defined our radio buttons. Okay, so what do you want to do after that? So when the user chooses a color and clicks OK, the color of the layout will change, right? Now to do this, I will add a click listener to the OK button. So we've already defined the OK button here. So I will write here, OK.setOnClickListener, new view onClickListener. And then inside the onClick method, I will write my conditions. If green dot is checked, and again, before I continue, I will need to give an ID to the linear layout. And I will give linear as the ID. And also, I'll need to define this linear layout on the Java side. And I'll write that here, linear layout. And inside the create method, layout equals find view by ID r.id.linear. And now I can change the background color using layout. So I'm going to write here inside the brackets, layout.setBackgroundColor, and then inside the parenthesis, color.green. And of course, that's my first condition. If the user chooses the green radio button, background color will be green. And then after that, I can write the second condition. Else if red dot is checked, layout dot set background color, color dot red. And for the third condition, else if yellow dot is checked, layout dot set background color, color dot yellow. So far, so good. So let's run it and see if it's working or not. Application opens. So when the green radio button is selected, click OK. Background color is changed to green. And now I'll choose red and click OK. Uh-oh, the background color is red. Shall we go 3 for 3? I choose yellow and the background is yellow. Now, you should see that I can only choose one option on these radio buttons, right? So pretty much the use of radio buttons is easy. And again, I think it's enough for this video. See you in the next one. Toggle button. Hello, everyone. We're going to speak about toggle buttons in this video. The toggle button gives us two options. Well, technically, it gives two options to the user. It will be on or off. That's the position of a toggle button. The thing is, you define what needs to be done whenever the user turns the toggle button to the on position. It is easy to use, so we'll go to Android Studio and we'll give it a go, see it in practice, because you know what? Time is running. Okay, so we had a project before. Let's continue this project and we will add a toggle button. Now you can see the toggle button under the button section. And I'll just drag a toggle button and drop it under the image view. The layout width of the toggle button is match parent. I'll change it to wrap content. And it's centered horizontally. Now you know that because layout gravity of the linear layout is center horizontally. And now the toggle button will basically have two positions, two options, if you will. I will define what will happen in the on position as well as in the off position. So, what can we make it do when it takes the on position? For example, when it's flipped on, we can make it hide this image. And when it's flipped off, we can show the image again. Also, I'm going to want to change the text of the text view to images hidden when toggle button is in the on position. Okay, so after that, I will change the text of the text view to image is shown when toggle button is in the off position. So let's do this. Before we start, we can change the text of the toggle button. Where do I do that? Well, you know that we've all changed all of the text of the buttons from text attributes, but we're not going to do that for this toggle button. There's another text attribute, and it is text off and text on. Pretty handy. So we will define a text in the text off section when the position of the toggle button is off. And also we can define a text when the position of the toggle button is on. And I will write hide image for the text off and show image for text on. So also we're going to need to give a name to this ID and to this toggle button. In other words, we need to give it an ID. So I will give toggle button show as an ID. So now I can go to the Java code section. Now, first of all, I will need to define this toggle button on the Java side. I will write toggle button and toggle button again. Now, of course, you can give it another name if you want to, but then after that, we will define its ID inside the onCreate method. And I will write here toggle button equals find view by ID, and inside the parentheses r.id.toggle button show. And in order to do the operations on the toggle button, I need to add a listener. Now, normally I would just add a click listener, but for a toggle button, I will add checked change listener. So I'll write it here, toggle button dot set on checked change listener and new component button dot on checked change listener. And I will write my code inside the onChecked change method. So when the checked position of the button is changed, the listener will detect this change and then apply the codes that I wrote here. Now it can take two positions, of course, checked or unchecked, or on or off. So it means that when the toggle button is on, it takes the checked, and the toggle button is off, it takes the unchecked position. So I'll just write it here that if it's checked, and inside the brackets, I will hide image. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, if you remember correctly, or if I remember correctly, we defined the image view here before, and its name was image. So I will write here image.setVisibility view.invisible. Now also I will want to change the text of the text view. We have defined text view here already, and its name was, you remember, don't rewind, result. So I'll just write it here, result.set text image is hidden. Okay? So after that, we can write the else condition. So that means that when the toggle button takes the off position again, I will write here image.setVisibility view.visible. Also, result.set text image is shown. Okay, so let's run it and see if it's working or not. And now the application's open. So you see here on the toggle button, the text is hide image. When I click the toggle button, image is hidden and text of the text view is changed. Cool. Also, the text of the toggle button is changed. So when I click it again, the image is shown and text of the text view changed again. Also, the text of the toggle button is changed to the hide image. So that's, I don't know, I think it's easy. I hope that you think it's easy too. But in any event, it is enough for this particular video. I've got another one coming up, so see you then. Spinner. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to speak to you about Spinner in this video. Spinner is an Android component that we use in Android application development. Spinner opens a list, and then the user can choose an item from the list. So when the user selects an item from the list, some operations can start by choosing the selection. So why don't we go to Android Studio and get to work and do some practice? All right, so remember we had a project before. We'll just continue with the project so that we can see the progress on the build. And we're going to do an example in this video. So let's set up the example project just like this. There's a list of countries. And when the user selects a country from the list, the country name will be written here on the text view. So for example, if I want to select Germany, then text view will display Germany. If I select the Netherlands, on the text view, it will write Netherlands. All right, so this is how Spinner works, basically. So why don't we start to do this in the application? So first of all, we need a spinner. But before I add Spinner here, I want to add a new horizontal linear layout here. And I added this layout under the image view. I'll add Spinner under this layout. And Spinner is under the container section. Also, I'll add a text view. So this text view will display and explain what the user will do with this spinner. And you see that the other components are not seen. And here I can change the height of the new linear layout to the wrap content. And now you can see the other components. So also, I want to change the width of the spinner to wrap content. And now we have a text view and a spinner. So I'll change the text of the text view. I will write it here to select a country. I'll also change the text color of text view to white. Okay, so now we need to give an ID to the spinner. All I do is write spinner country. And then after that, I just need to fill in the spinner. Now to fill in the spinner, I will create an array. I'll do this under the values folder in the strings XML file. I'll just open the strings XML file and write here string array. I need to give a name to this array. The name could be, I don't know, countries. And I will write between the string arrays items. I'll write an item here. And I will write the country names between two item XML code. So every item is an element of the array. All right? So the first country should be England. Second is Netherlands. Third is Belgium. Fourth is Germany. And fifth is Finland. Okay, so now we have 5 items inside the countries array. All right, so the spinner is ready, and also the array is ready. So now we can go over to the Java side. So first, I'll define spinner. And I'll just write here spinner. Also, the name could be spinner again, doesn't matter. Well, I mean, for me it does because I like clarity. And then inside the onCreate method, spinner equals find new by idr.id.spinner country. All right, so now I need to take a moment to explain a very important bit here. We have a spinner and we have an array. To transfer information from the array to the spinner, I'll need to create an adapter. So in this case, what is an adapter? So let me just show you with a picture, because it's very important. I want you to have a look at this in detail. We will use the adapter in some of the other components as well. So now we're going to use this adapter for the spinner, but we'll also use it for the list view and the grid view for some of the next videos. So we will call the adapter, and then what makes a connection between a data set and a view. In this example, the data set is array list and the view is spinner. Then we need to create an adapter between the array list and spinner. And I'll just do this in the main activity using Java code. So I'll write here array adapter, and its name is adapter. And I'm going to define this adapter inside the onCreate method. So here, the adapter equals array adapter.create from resources. Now I need to define 3 parameters in here. First is context, and I will write here. All right, that's right. So this means that this adapter will work in this class. The second parameter is array ID. And I'll write r.array.countries, and I'll define array ID to the adapter. Now the third one is the spinner layout. I need to specify how each item looks inside the spinner. So I'll write android.r.layout.simpleSpinnerItem. So now I need to specify the drop-down layout. I'll write adapter.set drop-down view resource. And then inside the parenthesis, android.r.layout.simpleSpinner drop-down item. And now the adapter's ready. I'll just need to assign this adapter to the spinner. How do you do that? I will just write spinner.setAdapter and adapter. So now these codes will fill in the spinner with the countries array. Now, let's check it just to make sure that we have done this so far so good. You with me? Okay, so the application is open, and in the text view, writing select a country, spinner filled in with the country names. So what have we done up until this point? we have created a spinner and a data set, and then we have connected the spinner and the data set using the array adapter. And then after that, we needed to do one more thing. When the user selects a country from the spinner, the name of the country should be written in the text view. So let's continue. I'll need to add a listener to the spinner. And this listener is set on item selected listener. And inside the parenthesis, new adapter view dot on item selected listener. So when I write this code, two methods are created by Android Studio. First one is on item selected. The other one is on nothing selected. So I'll write my codes here. When the user selects an item from the spinner, this method will work, and I will write here parent dot get item at position. And inside the parenthesis, position. Okay, so now what will this code do? It will take the text of the item in the selected position. And then after that, I will assign this text to a new string. So I've created a new string, and its name is country. And lastly, I will write result.set text and country. And now this code will get the country name and write it on the text view. All right, so let's run it again and look. Oh, I get excited, I know. Okay, so the application is open, and when I select Netherlands on the text view, it will write Netherlands. And when I select Germany, it will write Germany on text view. And which item I select from here, it will write the name of the item onto the text view. And that's the way the spinner works. So I think that's plenty for this video. I will see you next video.